This podcast is brought to you by A. Miller George Funeral Home, where each life is celebrated, and their sister company, Cremation London Middlesex, both family owned and operated. By the Diocese of Huron, a community where families and individuals from Windsor to Owen Sound, Grand Bend to Port Rowan come together to worship and serve. And by Molly Maid. Make your home a healthy haven. Call Molly Maid London today. We kick off Season 9 by welcoming back Philip Yancey. Having authored over 25 books in which he has wrestled with God, with the church, and with fellow believers, Philip Yancey has sold more than 7 million copies in English, and his books have been translated into 40 languages worldwide. With a journalistic, storytelling style, he invites readers to accompany him as he probes the deepest mysteries of the Christian faith and challenges readers to live as followers of Jesus.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you may be. We welcome you to the Vickers Crossing podcast. The Vickers Crossing is a virtual space where faith intercedes with the public square. And hey, we're back for season 9, and we're back too. It's Rob Henderson here from Holy Trinity St. Stephen's in London.
And I'm Kevin George from St. Aidan's Anglican Church up in the northwest corner of the same city.
Where's the time gone, Kevin?
Unbelievable.
Season 9,
buddy. We keep trucking along, and it's been a while because we took a big hiatus.
Yeah.
But we're back. And I guess before we go too far into this, I did want to, as has become our custom, is to think about the ways that we have contributed to the brokenness with our First Nations peoples, our Indigenous peoples, and we want to acknowledge that the land upon which we record this are the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenapehoik, and Attawandaron peoples, on lands connected with the London Township and Sombre Treaties of 1796 and a dish with one spoon covenant wampum. And these lands continue to be home to diverse Indigenous peoples whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of this land and vital contributors of our society. And for Rob and I hope for all of you who are listeners, we want to consider ways in which we participated in colonialism and benefited from white privilege and find ways to alter and amend our lives to work towards reconciliation.
Thank you. Now, just before we get going with more, for those watching on YouTube, so those of you listening to the podcast won't see this obviously, but for those on YouTube, you're wondering why we're wearing a little blue and silver today. Because today we're recording on the day that our beloved Detroit Lions open their NFL season. So we're getting ready for the game tonight.
That's right. And Honolulu Blue, baby. Honolulu Blue.
Right. You do not have to be clergy to understand the deep meaning of hope. You only need to be a Lions fan.
That's true. So Rob,
had no hope. So Rob, I've been watching this go on for 50 years. Nothing's happened.
They're trying to tell us this is the year. So Rob, a friendly wager, because by the time this goes to air on Monday, right? Yeah, that we will know who won the game by the time this goes to air. So the friendly wager is loser buys the beer. I say the Lions are playing the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs.
Correct. Yep.
So I will say the Lions will win tonight by at least 7.
Okay.
What do you say?
I'll take the Lions, but I'll say a little closer. We'll give it 3 points.
Okay.
Field goal at the end. So we'll see how the score turns out. And one of
loser buys the beer. Okay.
Okay. Perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
And I got to say that my Honolulu Blue and so on are seafoam colors. I just was at the church, and we have a group over there called the Tight Knit Group. And they knit every Thursday, and these beautiful prayer shawls they make to wrap people in, to remind them that they're cared for, loved, and prayed for. And we give out several of these every week, just about. And I was asked to come over there today. And when I got there, they presented me with my very own prayer shawl to say that let me know they love me and that, they pray for me and so on. So I thought that was nice in itself. So I thought I'd wear this. So for those of you watching, you see beautiful prayer shawl. If you're hearing about this as you're listening, and if you know somebody in this area who you'd like to have a prayer shawl because they're going through a rough time, be in touch because we'll hook them up.
That's a great idea. That's a great ministry. And I know there's a lady in my parish whose name is Betty, and she never wants to be spoken about, just quietly goes about
Yep.
right caring for people, and she does that. And I remember on my first day at the parish, she gave my wife and I each our own little shawls and
Yep.
kind of hands them out to newcomers and stuff. So it's a great ministry, and it's nice to see that happening over there. It's great. Okay, we want to say thank you to our sponsors, the Vickers Crossing, returning for another year. These good folks have been great supporters of us. First to A. Miller George Funeral Home, where each life is celebrated, and their sister company, Cremation London Middlesex, both family owned and operated. And again, we are indebted to Dave Mullen, who's been a great support.
Guy.
Deb over there and the staff,
Yep.
and Anika and Siobhan and everybody. They've just been great with us. So we really appreciate you guys being a part of it.
Great people, and some really great people at the Diocese of Huron who came on board last year as our sponsor, and will continue this year. We give thanks for the diocese. Is a diocese that goes from sort of Port Rowan down to Windsor, and from the Bruce Peninsula out to Kitchener, and everywhere in between, with all kinds of work towards justice and holiness. So thanks to Bishop Todd Townsend and everyone at the diocesan staff for that support.
And back again, our good friends at Molly Maid. Make your home a healthy haven. Call Molly Maid London today. Many thanks to Tricia Listar and the staff there. And hey, welcome back, Tricia. Great to have you with us. And we're looking forward to another great year on the Vickers Crossing Season 9. And we've got a great guest today, Kevin. I don't know.
Coming?
Do you want to just talk about who's coming?
Well, no. Why don't you talk about who's coming today, and then we'll talk about some other stuff that's coming too.
Okay, we'll look ahead a little bit too. So here we are. We've got a gentleman who is a big favorite here on the podcast, and I know in many of our parishes and throughout Christian circles, Philip Yancey is going to be joining us once again, and a wonderful author and speaker. And so he's going to be here in just a couple of moments. His writings have impacted literally millions of people around the world. He's sold over 17 million books. He has a unique gift for blending very deep theological insight with practical wisdom, and his books have been translated into over 50 languages. Now, Philip is coming to Southwestern Ontario in September. And we're going to try to get down and see him in a few weeks, but we're going to be telling you about where he's going to be, and we're going to talk to him a little bit about what that whole event is. He's doing a little touring and a special event. So Philip will be here in a moment.
Awesome. And just to give you folks a little bit of a heads up on what's coming ahead. I mean, we did take a break. We got really sort of overwhelmed come February past. It's been a long winter. We had a lot going on in our parish lives, and so we took a hiatus. But we have planned a bang-up season here for this fall session. So after Philip joins us today, shortly after that, Father James Martin will be with us. Father Jim's got a new book out called Come Forth, just released or dropped this week, I think. So we're excited to talk to him about that. Sarah Jean Barton, who we had booked to come on to the podcast to talk about becoming the baptized body, disability, and the practice of Christian community, is excited that we've rebooked her so that she can get on. My summer reading was a great big thick book called King: A Life, a new biography of Martin Luther King, written by award-winning author Jonathan Eig, who he's written biographies of Lou Gehrig and of Muhammad Ali, and now this new document around Martin Luther King is just incredible. Andrew Whitehead will be with us to talk about his book, American Idolatry. The Reverend Dr. Jay Augustine is just an incredible individual that I know you'll be excited to see. From just down the road here at Wycliffe, we're going to have Dr. Marion Taylor talking to us about Voices Long Silenced, an examination of women's voices that have been writing commentaries over the years that we haven't necessarily heard. And from McMaster University, Matthew Thiessen has a brand new book just released last week called A Jewish Paul. And another Canadian coming on from Toronto, Aaron Vernicombe, to talk about the book After Jesus and Before Christianity. And Dr. Kwok Pui Lan will also be joining us to talk about the Anglican tradition and post-colonialism. And lots of great stuff. Carol Malcolmson will be talking about mysticism. And the final guest for this season will be Dr. Kelly Brown Douglas, who is a canon theologian at the Washington National Cathedral. and she is the interim president of Episcopal Divinity School, where she was most recently dean. And she's got a great book out called Resurrection Hope, and it's a fantastic read. Lots of great guests coming up. So I think
Very
we've
good.
got a season you're all going to want to take part in.
Very good. All right. Get your laptops and iPads ready. Get your iPods in your ears. Take us on the road if you want to do that too. The Vickers Crossing podcast is back for season number 9. And Philip Yancey is our very first guest. So looking forward to talking to him and checking in and finding out what he's going to be doing in Southwestern Ontario this month. So let's check in now.
Awesome.
And so happy to welcome back to the Vickers Crossing podcast, Philip Yancey, joining us for the second time around. Philip, we're so grateful you're here. How are you? I know you're still up in Colorado, right?
Right. And I brought my Commonwealth mug just for you guys.
Good for you.
Perfect. Perfect. That's
So
perfect.
we've forgiven the 1776.
Okay,
experiment.
yeah. Not too soon to talk about that, is it?
You probably
right.
you probably have a few bigger fish to fry right at the minute.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We avoid being the oppressed nation to our north there.
Yeah.
But,
That's
right.
good.
That's right. Well, we're so glad you're here. And, last time you were on the podcast, a lot of our parishioners very excited because they've read your books, and we've done book studies with them over the years, and they'd always say, boy, I love a chance to be able to hear them again. And now we're actually excited to be able to tell them, now you don't just need to hear them, you can actually see them.
That's
That's
You're
right.
coming to our neck of the woods in September, so that's wonderful. I think Kevin's going to kind of give a little preview of that.
Yeah, we're folks listening to this, please jot down the dates and times. But Philip will be he's being brought here by Effect Hope. And the tour is labeled Philip Yancey Restoring Hope, which I got to get that because I need you to restore my hope. I swear to you. But the dates are September 24th. You'll find Philip at Bethany Community Church in St. Catharines at 7 p.m. September 25th, Clearview Church in Oakville at 7:30 p.m. September 26th, 7:30 p.m. at Tyndale University in North York. September 27th at Community Christian Reformed Church in Kitchener. And on September 28th at 7 p.m. at Scarborough Chinese Baptist Church in Scarborough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nights in a row, Philip. Are you a glutton for punishment?
I'm tired just listening to you. It hasn't even started yet.
5 nights in a row. You're incredible. So
and then some noon meetings too, like at Tyndale University. But I don't know if you know this, guys, but this actually goes back before the pandemic. They had a tour scheduled where we started in Vancouver in that area, and then Calgary, and then Toronto. Everything was all lined up, and then it hit and your borders closed, and we barely got out of Canada.
Oh, yeah, wow. Yeah, well, we're glad that it's been reset, and we're looking forward to meeting you in person. But maybe we could get you to share more with our listeners about this Christian nonprofit Effect Hope and what they do, and your own affiliation with them, and the motivation to come and share as you are.
Sure. Yes, my the word Effect Hope doesn't really tell you what they do so much. Well, they are effecting hope around the world, but it used to be the Canadian Leprosy Mission, the Leprosy Mission of Canada. There's still an American Leprosy Mission, although I think they're changing their name, and we'll have the word hope in there too. I got connected when I did some of my early books with Dr. Paul Brand. I've gone back and redone those, and just a year and a half ago, we released Fearfully and Wonderfully, which is kind of the compilation and updating of some of those early books. Dr. Brand was a leprosy specialist. He was on the board of the Worldwide Leprosy Mission, the British Leprosy Mission, and had a lot to do with the Canadian Leprosy Mission as well. A lot of people think leprosy, boy, when was that eliminated? Well, it wasn't. 200,000 people this year will be identified for the first time as a leprosy patient.
Wow.
The good thing is there's great treatment available. They can stop it, keep it from being contagious. Nobody has to worry about that. But there's still a lot of people in the world, millions, a couple million in India alone, who still need orthopedic type treatment because it's a degenerative disease in the sense that it kills your nerve cells. And so there's this thing used to be called the leper's claw, where the fingers kind of claw in and become unusable. Well, there are very basic surgeries where they can kind of replace tendons and move them around. Dr. Brand initiated those. and you can return a person so that they can type or work in the yard or do normal things. So hope is a good word for leprosy patients now. Wasn't for most of history, but it is now. And in addition to that, because there is a decline in the number of leprosy patients, they've expanded their mission to neglected tropical diseases.
Yes.
And some of the diseases that are most widespread and damaging are neglected just because there's not a lot of money to be made. They're in poor countries. Pharmaceutical companies don't want to invest millions of dollars in research when people can't even buy the drugs.
Right.
So yeah, it's just kind of a sad thing going on. And that's why we need organizations like Effect Hope that fill in when the governments and private industries aren't motivated to do so.
Yeah. Well, I actually was surprised. I had not heard of them. I had heard of their previous moniker, I think. And but when I saw the notice come out from you guys, and I took a look online, it really does look like the work they're doing is just incredible, and it's rooted in a very Christian way as well, which is so fantastic.
Yeah, Kevin, I think that's something we can be proud of in human history, in Christian history. Yeah. You can look back on the church and feel bad about a lot of things.
Yeah, of course.
But this one you can feel good about, because every major advance, scientifically, medically, in the treatment and understanding of leprosy came about from Christian missionaries.
Yeah, isn't that incredible?
Not because they were necessarily the best scientists and the best doctors, although many of them were very good, but they were the only ones who would overcome that fear barrier and reach out to these people who were disfigured, and so people were afraid of them and ran away from them, made them leave the village. That often in India they would just live in a little community out in the rocks, and somebody would bring them a bucket of food every once in a while. And it's an interesting story, because in the Middle Ages, this rumor went around that Jesus had leprosy. One of these crazy middle-aged rumors. And so Jesus said, what you treat, if you reach out to these my brethren, what you do for them, you do also for me. And they took that literally, and they said, we've been chasing all these people with leprosy out of town. We need to bring them back in.
Bring Jesus back to town.
Treat them like Jesus. Yeah. So, I mean, it was an amazing movement. In France alone, they built 2,000 leprosy kind of hospitals, small hospitals, but places where they were treated with dignity and care. And there's really no leprosy left in Europe. There was. It's called Hansen's disease. He's Norwegian. It was in Norway. It was all over Europe. But largely because of that care, somebody said, I'm going to treat people with leprosy as if they were Jesus. That turned the corner on that disease. And boy, I keep thinking, man, I wish we'd done that about AIDS, about homelessness, about
mental illness, I mean,
many things.
It's just incredible when you say, I mean, it's foundational, in sort of the Episcopal Anglican reality. In the baptism, we talk about, one of the promises being respecting the dignity of every human being. And hearing you say that, that it was Christian scientists who did the work in this, that you're right, it is something we should be proud of. One of those people, of course, is Dr. Paul Brand. And I want to pick up on that a little bit. Dr. Brand and you developed quite a relationship and friendship over the years. For those who may be unaware, he was an orthopedic surgeon whose work among those living with leprosy changed medical practice and the lives of those affected with leprosy forever. You co-authored 3 books with him, if I'm right, of the many, many books you've written. Fearfully and Wonderfully Made, as you say, which is just re-released in the last couple of years, In His Image, and The Gift of Pain, Why Hurt and What We Can Do About It. Why We Hurt and What We Can Do About It. You recently updated that Fearfully and Wonderfully Made, and in the introduction, you write this about Dr. Brand, and I just want to read this little section and then invite your reflection more on him, because I think, when I read those books going back years and then revisiting it this week in a new updated version, it's really incredible how he lived his life and what he did. He was really a witness and used his vocation in the best way possible to sort of live his life. You write, I am forever grateful for the time Paul Brand and I spent together. My faith grew as I observed with a journalist's critical eye a person enhanced in every way by his faith. No one has affected me more, and I know no one who better illustrates Jesus' most quoted statement in the Gospels, that whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. From the perspective of a success-obsessed culture, an orthopedic surgeon devoting his career to some of the poorest and most oppressed people on the planet is an example of losing his life. Yet Dr. Brand lived as full and rich a life as anyone I know, you write, one that combined professional achievement with enduring qualities of humility and a grand sense of adventure. As much as anyone, he helped set my course in outlook, spirit, and ideals. I look at the natural world and environmental issues largely through his eyes. From him, I also gained assurance that the Christian life I had heard of in theory can actually work in practice. Tell us more about your relationship with Dr. Brand and about the kind of witness that he gave to you and to the world around him.
I'd be glad to. As you just read, no one affected my life more. We talked about my memoir last time I was on with you guys, and it opens with the scene of my father dying. Because of a theological error, actually, people pulled him out of an iron lung thinking he would be healed. And he had polio, couldn't breathe. And then within a few days, really, he died. So I grew up completely without a father. And I talk about that, the impact of that. And then I got my first job, was recovering from a very toxic church experience. And here I am, a writer. I'm writing for a youth magazine called Campus Life, and I wasn't sure what I believed. I know some things I didn't believe. Those were some of the things my church taught me. And right at that time, I met Dr. Brand. I was writing the book, Where is God When It Hurts? And I had read all these books on the problem of pain and the curse of pain and how to get rid of pain and all that. And Dr. Brand had a whole different perspective. He said, thank God for pain. If there was one gift I could give to my leprosy patients, it would be the gift of pain.
Yeah.
And he's one of the few people who convinced the medical establishment that leprosy did not work like flesh-eating bacteria, as was thought, that all it did was destroy nerve cells. And people don't feel pain, so they actually destroyed themselves. Very easy illustration. Here we are talking in different cities, but we have one thing in common. We all blink about 28,000 times a day. We've been blinking. But I guarantee you, if you said, I'm going to stop blinking and just held your eyes open, if you could go 5 minutes, I'd be impressed. You've got little pain cells in there that are quietly encouraging you to blink. But if you keep your eyes open, they're going to really hurt. And a person with leprosy doesn't have those little pain cells working anymore. So they don't blink all day and their eyes dry out, and about a third of them go blind.
Wow.
So Dr. Brown found some ways to address that. His wife is an ophthalmologist, an amazing story. But I was impressed most with just the creative mind he had. He was a true scientist. He wanted to know the name of every butterfly, every bird, every plant, and was recognized for his brilliance. He was offered the head of orthopedics at Oxford University and at Stanford University. And he turned them down.
Wow.
To do what? To work with leprosy patients who had no money, who were despised and kicked out of their own families and villages, and just really changed the course of that disease. I remember speaking at his funeral, and I said, we were kind of an odd couple. He was in his 60s, distinguished British silver-haired doctor. And I was in my 20s. My hair was really wide. Didn't get long. It just got wide.
Garfunkelish.
Yeah, Garfunkelish. That's right. Yes. And again, recovering from a bad family, bad church situation, and he became my who I could write about with integrity. I wasn't able to write about my own faith. It was still taking shape at that point. But I could write about his faith. And at his funeral, I said, we had this exchange where I gave words to his faith. He had never written. Here was his treasure that I found, and I wanted to get his words out there, his thoughts and ideas. So I gave words to his faith, but in the process, he gave faith to my words.
Wow.
Because I could write. I never questioned, could this be true? Is he a hypocrite? Is he the real thing? He was the real thing. Yeah. And it only takes one sometimes.
That's right.
To convince you to say, oh, that's what Jesus had in mind.
Right.
Because that verse you quoted about you find your life by giving it away, that's actually quoted more often by the gospel writers than any other thing that Jesus said. Yeah. And he was a man who was at the very top.
Yeah.
And went to the very bottom in the Jesus style.
Yeah.
But he was never a martyr. He never felt he was sacrificing. He was joyful and grateful and just so thankful for the world that we live in and worshipful of God. It was truly an emblem of faith that changed me.
Sort of strikes me a little bit like reading about the way he practiced in India, as you say, among the poorest. It was very much sort of like that notion that Henry Nouwen wrote about downward mobility, right. And that sort of the way of Jesus being downwardly mobile. And in as you say, in a success obsessed world where the seductive stuff is placed in front of you, to have the courage and the faith to say no to that.
Yeah.
In order to actually do something which you're called to do is really quite something.
Yeah. Yeah, I spent a day up with Henry Nouwen when he was in the Toronto area, a full day. And in those days, he was taking care of a man named Adam.
Adam, yeah.
Who was fully adult, but his mind was not. Mm-hmm. And Henry never knew whether Adam ever knew who he was or recognized him, or, he didn't get that kind of feedback. He wasn't able to. Adam wasn't able to give it. And I'm a journalist. We ask these obnoxious questions. So at one point I said to him, Henry, do you ever think, is this the best use of my time? I mean, you could be doing all sorts of things. It takes you like 2 hours a day just to kind of get Adam ready and dressed and fed and bathed. And he looked at me with this kind of shocked expression. I can't believe he would ask such a cynical question,
Yeah.
And then when he went on to say, I think it's the very best use of my time. It's my worship time. It's when, what I do to Adam, I do to Jesus. And this is when I meditate. And he went on and I said, okay, sorry. I withdraw the question.
I take it back.
Right.
But it's, and I mean, again, it's similar, right? Like he was at Yale and Harvard, but he walked away from that to go to Toronto, I mean, these people have a way with their bodies and their action and where they place themselves. To me, it's an incredible witness.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Mother Teresa would be another example there where people just days from dying.
Yes.
She lavishes care on, and people would say, is that the best use of your resources and your time? And she would just shake her head. I can't believe you journalists,
That's right. When you were last with us, Philip, we were discussing your memoir, Where the Light Fell. And that really was ways of really an outpouring of pain from the broken relationships in your family too. And I was kind of seeing that connection of pain as a gift in a way, and trying to understand that. And in that you wrote about your reticence in really sharing your story sooner because of your mom and your brother and who are still living. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about, how pain and the sharing of pain in your own life has been the potential to be that giver of freedom that you wrote about with Dr. Brand.
Yeah. Right. We were talking about hope a few minutes ago, and I hesitated for more than 40 years to write my life story just because of what you mentioned, because it was incomplete, that the little family of 3, my father had died, so 2 boys and our mother, and my brother and she had no contact in over 50 years. And so finally I decided, my mother's getting quite old. She was 98. I've just got to tell this story, and I want to be fair to her. So I'll interview her. I'll try to present, as much of her perspective as I can. So I went ahead and published it thinking, oh, brother, this is going to be so hard now. because she's going to be hurt. There's going to be even further damage in the family. And wonderfully, gracefully, it didn't happen. In fact, after I turned the manuscript in, so too late to make any changes, my mother said, I'd like to talk to your brother. She always says your brother rather than my son, you know, and he says your mother rather than my mother. And so we set up a series of phone calls where I was kind of moderating and got them on a conference call. We did 4 of those in the last year of her life. And then she died. This is in May 2023.
Wow.
My wife and I were there for her death. Wow. And just before she died, my brother, totally on his own, I didn't even know about this, wrote her a 3-word card that just said, I forgive you.
Wow.
And I think that was kind of one last strand that she was holding on to. And then I did get him to talk on the phone and tell her goodbye. So it's not the Christmas scene of everybody together singing hymns, but there was contact at least, and I was so glad that what I was afraid would really hurt further actually ironically produced the first contact that they had, and my brother's still living and we're still quite close. So that had a good ending compared to what I feared for decades.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a living example of the very thing that book was about and that Dr. Brand talked about, and, having that freedom and being able to let that go and be able to move forward by stepping into the pain. It's very countercultural. Like when you look at the title of the book, right, this notion of pain as a gift, but it is also the way of the cross that leads to new life. So
it really is.
Good to hear that.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. The title of the speaking tour, Restoring Hope. As I said, I can't wait because I need my hope restored. I have given to despair some days of late. Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote that all the downtrodden can do is go on hoping. After every disappointment, they find fresh reason for hope. A lot of folks nowadays are despairing, I think. Our sort of pandemic time, post-lockdown time, there's a lot going on where the political discourse, even just the sense of foreboding around what we've done to our created order and where it's all headed. I was taken by, I like reading Mitch Albom. Rob and I happen to be Detroit Lions fans, so we talk about hope.
Detroit,
you need to restore our hope. So,
hey, I'm a Broncos fan. I understand completely.
But Mitch Albom, out of Detroit, sports writer and novelist, wrote a great book called Finding Chica around a young girl that they had done some work with, and in it he says hopelessness can be contagious, but hope can be too. There is no medicine to match it. I think he's right. But it's about harnessing that. You obviously feel that there's a cause for hope. You're coming to Southwestern Ontario to talk about it. Can you say more about restoring hope and why that's so critical right now?
Yes. By the way, a little side note on Mitch Albom. I don't know if you saw it, but Malcolm Gladwell did a profile of this little college in Western Michigan called Hope College.
Oh, Hope College.
Hope College in Holland, Michigan.
Yeah.
And Mitch Albom, who's Jewish, I don't think he calls himself a Christian, but got involved with these kids in Haiti. And he liked what was going on in Hope College, and they started kind of a partnership. And he has a scholarship program, and he brings these kids from Haiti to Hope College.
That's amazing.
In Holland, Michigan. And restores hope.
Yep.
A couple of them have become doctors or lawyers. It's a great story. But we do need help. Somebody sent me a manuscript the other day called Chronic Hope. I like that, Chronic Hope.
Neat.
And I think we Christians should have chronic hope. The kind of hope that never goes away. When you have chronic pain, it's just always there in the background. Sometimes it's roaring, sometimes it's not as loud. And the same thing could be true of hope. We have we have hope. I came up with this phrase that I will talk about when I'm up there in a couple of weeks. It goes like this, that as a journalist, when I look back on the people I've interviewed and gotten to know and whose stories I have written, pain that has been redeemed impresses me more than pain removed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when suffering comes, and I know this, earlier this year, I got a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. So you know, I'm on that side. I know what it's like.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you do need hope. I need hope that these crazy exercises that I do, feeling like a person in junior high school, you know,
Yeah, I bet.
you know, that they will
Yeah.
they will keep
Yeah.
the disease a little bit at bay, that they're worth the time. And I need hope that I can continue functioning, that my mind will still work. You know, that, all these things, and people with different conditions, of course, face different ramifications of that. But our natural response is say, Lord, take it away from me.
Right.
Yeah.
Please remove it. And sometimes that does happen, but often it does not. I would imagine, I haven't seen any stats, but I would imagine that about the same percentage of Christians got COVID the last 3 years as non-Christians.
Even the ones who said they were washed in the blood.
Even those,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, even those who, especially those who didn't take vaccines or
That's
wear
right.
masks.
Yeah.
You know?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do know that exactly the same percentage of Christians die
Yeah.
as non-Christians, 100%.
Yeah.
And most of them were prayed for, you know, except in sudden accidents, and most of them prayed for healing themselves. And we live on a beautiful, unbelievable planet, but it's been spoiled. It's not what pleases God. And when I go to a place like Sandy Hook or these places where we've had shootings and try to bring comfort, I say, whatever grief you feel, God grieves more.
Yeah.
How do I know that? And you just go back and look at Jesus. God came to the earth and gave us a face.
Mm-hmm.
And if you follow Jesus around, you can see he wants us to be healed. And everybody who asked him, everybody he had contacted directly was healed. But he didn't come to change the rules of planet Earth.
Right.
He came to give us hope that even the bad things that could happen. And he told his disciples, it's going to be rough out there. You're going to be put in prison. You're going to be persecuted. So don't follow me unless you're ready for that. You know, there are easier ways, the broad way. But it is worth it, he said, and gave us a kind of eternal hope. And not just an eternal hope. It's one thing to say, oh, pie in the sky and by, but he gave the promise that Paul expresses so beautifully in Romans 8, that no matter what happens, and look at Paul's life,
Right.
snake bite and shipwreck and torture and imprisonment, all these things, and eventual execution, that all of these things could somehow be used for our good. I call God the great recycler. You know, he takes the junk, the stuff we don't want, get rid of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like when I give away my old tube television, you know, this giant thing. And I threw it in this dumpster, and it was one of these recycling deals where I actually had to pay money for them to take my big TV, you know, and crush it, get little metals out of it. But they took those metals and made something the size of an iPhone that was far smarter than any computer I'd ever had, any TV, you know, the screen. And I think that's what God does. And I, on purpose as a journalist, go to people who have been through really tough times and have something to teach the rest of us, because it's easy to get self-absorbed in pain. And even now, like with the war going on in Ukraine, we were in Ukraine shortly before the war broke out, and I hear these stories of pain redeemed in the midst of war, and how the church is thriving in Ukraine because people are flocking. They know, you know, that night a bomb could fall on their house. What's going to happen next? And you know, the church has some hope to offer. Not everybody buys it, but some people do, and it can really make a difference.
I think you know, in reading your stuff around pain and where's God when it hurts and so on, I think the other thing that I really like about your honesty is that I think sometimes people in Christian circles have a propensity to talk about, miraculous healing and so on and
Right.
so forth. And it's almost, it's a false hope that is given to people, but what you're writing about is real. And one of the people that I think about, and I can't remember which one of the books I read this in now, but you tell the story of Lou and at worship. I think it's Lou, right? Is the and I just think about that turn of phrase you just used about pain redeemed and his story. I wonder if you could tell people about Lou. I mean, I just think
Yeah. Yeah, Lou was from Hawaii, if I recall correctly, and he was becoming more and more isolated. One of the things about leprosy, often they go blind, so then they can't see, and then they lose their sense of touch. Those nerve cells affect touch as well as pain. And so you could actually come up to a person with leprosy and put your hand on his face or pick up his hand to shake it, and he may not even know it. Wouldn't even feel it. And then, worst case, Lou is one of these people, a minority of the people react to the drugs by going deaf. And he was one of those people. And he just had, he had no contact. He was totally alone, and he tended to pull into kind of a fetal position on the bed and was really giving up. And they were able to restore, Lou played the auto harp. Yeah. And they were able to restore through these hand surgeries so that he could play the harp again. He couldn't really hear it, but he could kind of tell. And he found a place that made a big difference to him. So he would be in the little chapel there, playing the auto harp. He had a place, and gradually they found one little spot on Lou's hand that he could have sensation. So they'd noticed that he started testing before he drank coffee that was too hot. He would test it with this one little spot that had an unusual number of blood vessels on his hand, and that kind of became Lou's contact with the world. So if you wanted to say something like "Good job today" and in church, Lou, you would go and just tap his hand a little bit, and then he'd know you cared, and he had a place to serve.
Amazing. Well, Philip, before we let you go, we're going to run down the dates. You're in Southwestern Ontario here in just a minute. So folks, if you want to grab a pen or pencil and write these down, we'll have a website for you as well. But wanted to ask too, just quickly, if your readers are going to be maybe wondering if there's anything new from Philip Yancey coming out. Is there any scoop maybe you can give to the Vickers Crossing podcast that's maybe not out there yet, that we could find out a little bit more? Anything new in the works?
Yes. Several things all at once.
Of course.
What was that movie? Everything All at Once?
Everything all at once.
3 different books are coming out just in the next month or so.
Of course, there.
Yeah. 2 of them are kind of redone. One, it's the 25th anniversary year of What's So Amazing About Grace.
Wow. Really? Oh my God.
25 years ago?
25 years ago. And a lot has changed in the last 25 years. Of course, back then there was conflict and division. Now we're all peaceful and at accord. And there's no need for grace, right?
No need for grace.
No, we really need it now. And
that's great.
Plus, there's a whole new group of readers who we actually gave it to some people and said, "Mark things you don't know. Who's Al Gore?" They asked.
Yeah,
exactly.
What is Yugoslavia? I've never heard of it.
Boy, what is this Yugoslavia?
Yeah, right. But it's sadly it's very easy to remove Yugoslavia and plug in Ukraine and Russia.
That's right.
We've got all sorts of examples of ungrace in the world. So that's coming out just the week I'm in Toronto area, actually, and we will have the new edition for sale. Torontons will be the very first people in the world.
That's right. Well,
it won't even be in the stores yet.
I need a new copy to put next to my old.
There you go.
Put next to my old copy.
There's that one, and then during the pandemic, I was trying to come up with something that might be helpful to people, to bring some comfort and insight on what was going on. And I went back and did a modern rendering of John Donne's devotions that he wrote when he thought he had the bubonic plague in the middle of that pandemic in 1623.
Wow.
And that book is called Undone.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, Undone.
yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
John Donne wrote this poem when his father-in-law annulled their marriage. They eventually got back together, but he wrote this poem, John Donne and Donne redone.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
No, it was John
That's
Donne
great.
and Donne undone. That's right. Well, I've taken John Donne's book on the pandemic in his day and made it a John Donne redone.
Oh, good for you.
Just because there was some weird science,
Of
what was
course.
going on back then, long 200-word sentences, and just tried to
Yes.
make it accessible because he's got great insight
Yes.
and just beautiful exposition of the Bible. So that's coming out undone. And then I just turned in a manuscript, so it won't appear for a while, but I've just turned in a manuscript called What Went Wrong? Russia's Lost Opportunity and the Path to Ukraine.
Wow.
Because there was a period of about 15 years after the fall of communism, Berlin Wall, when they were wide open, looked to the West for help, welcomed missionaries. And then a man named Vladimir Putin came in about 2000 and reversed all of that, kicked them out as foreign agents, gave everything to the Russian Orthodox Church, and kind of signed a pact with the devil, in my opinion.
Honestly,
and then, we're seeing this the terrible results going on with disasters and everyday casualties. So yeah, I've been pretty busy, and it's been a crazy year because with the Parkinson's, I'm still adjusting, trying to figure out. I'm not as productive as I used to, but I'm looking forward to 2024. Frankly,
bring on
restoring
a new
hope.
year.
Very much so. Yeah, exactly. Well, looking forward to those, and wow, 25 years for Amazing Grace. And when you said that, I thought when I first read that, or I was with a group and we had to go out and rent Babette's Feast on a VHS.
Yeah, right.
You were referencing that.
Yeah.
Now I guess I got to find it on Netflix or something.
And of course, I'm sitting here thinking of how old in the tooth I'm getting in this work, because that was one of the first book studies I did in the parish when I was first ordained, like 20. Well, I got ordained 27 years ago. So it was one of the very first book studies I did in my parish down in Windsor.
Wow.
So yeah,
that's
great.
great.
That's good.
That's great.
All right. Well, Philip, we're so looking forward to having you in Southwestern Ontario. So folks, write these dates and times and places down, and make sure you get out to see Philip. September 24th at 7 p.m. at Bethany Community Church, St. Catharines. September 25th, 7:30 at Clearview Church, Oakville. September 26th at 7:30 at Tyndale University, North York. September 27th, 7:30, Community Christian Reformed Church, Kitchener. And September 28th at 7 p.m., Scarborough Chinese Baptist Church in Scarborough. And the website you can check out to find out more about Affect Hope is affecthope.org. And tickets are free, right, Philip? I believe so.
Yes, they are. Yeah. And I don't know
if you come on out.
Yeah, I don't know if you're able to put the website or something that people didn't write it down.
Yeah, we'll make sure it's in the show notes. And in the meantime, I'd encourage people to go check out the work that Affect Hope are doing. And if you're so motivated to support that work, then there's very easy ways on that webpage to donate to the work, the incredibly important work that they're doing.
Good. Well, perfect way to kick off season 9 of the Vickers Crossing podcast. Philip Yancey, thank you so much for dropping by again, and we'll look forward to seeing you in person in a few weeks.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Rob. I look forward to that too.
And again, thanks to Philip for dropping by, and looking forward to seeing him soon. Looking forward to talking to Father James coming up in another week, right?
Yep.
And looking forward to that, and many other guests in the Vickers Crossing. So we appreciate everybody dropping by to listen and watch, and look forward to a great season. So stick with us. And thanks to our sponsors, as always, to A. Miller George Funeral Home, where each life is celebrated, and their sister company, Cremation London, Middlesex, both family owned and operated, to the Diocese of Huron, and also to Molly Maid, where you can make your home a healthy haven and call Molly Maid London today. Thanks, buddy. Good to see you.
Yeah,
Good
you
to be
too.
back
And
at it.
I should add that big shout out here to Ian, who you don't see on the screen or hear in your in this, but Ian hasn't left us. Ian is still getting this into your ears. He's just deeply enmeshed in new study.
Yep.
And so we wish Ian the best, and we're assured he may get in one or two with us before the season's out. So
All right, good. Well, I look forward to seeing. I haven't seen him for a bit, so it'll be nice to connect again, see how university life is treating
That's
him.
right. Yeah.
So we're real proud of him that he's down a great path.
Yep.
Also, thanks to two Vickers, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Good guys. These people, my kind of people.
Thanks everybody for being here. We'll talk to you next time. And Kevin, my friend, remember to always look both ways
before you cross that street.
Thank you for listening. Our hosts are Kevin George and Rob Henderson. Our producer and composer is myself, Ian, with original artwork done by Elizabeth Dodman. If you have any questions or want to know where to find us, tweet us at Vickers Crossing or find us on Facebook at The Vickers Crossing. If you have any other questions about anything heard on this podcast, leave us a comment or look in the description to find out more. Thanks!